So up next, I have the privilege of introducing our acting president, Albert Garcia.
Well, thank you. I am watching the clock as you are, I think, so I'll be aware of that. My address is reasonably brief. I want to start with just actually a couple odds and ends. There was something Chancellor King said in his address. He mentioned us getting over $2 million in the next state budget, which is true. It's actually $2.4 million, and he said that it would be for our Veterans Center, which is also true, but it's not all of the information. It's also for a basic needs center on campus. So food distribution, perhaps clothing distribution, help with housing, all of those kinds of things for our students. I want to recognize that we have great work already being done in our RISE program, okay? And so this money is meant to expand and help what we already provide. So there's already good work being done, and hopefully we'll be able to do a whole lot more of it in the future. Several people have already mentioned our president, Gutierrez, and I saw him earlier in the week, and as Chancellor King mentioned, he does want us to continue on, not to pause, not to stop what we're doing and waiting for him to come back. He's looking good and recovering, so it's all good signs in that regard. One of the things he wants us to be working on is what a lot of people have already touched on this morning, okay? And that is making connections with our students. As I was listening to all the speakers this morning, it really struck me about just how many of them had that as part of their talk. So I'm going to start by telling you about just a little experience I had when I was a student. This won't be long. It was 1982. I was in a managerial accounting class at Chico State. Yeah, believe it or not. The instructor, you may have had some of you may have had an instructor like this. The instructor said for all of us students in the class to take a look to your left, take a look to your right. 2 of you will be gone by the end of the semester. All right? That made a big impression on me. I was fortunate. I survived. And I passed the class. I had resources too, but it really made a big impression on me. Eventually, I took off for Taylor Hall, where they were teaching poetry classes, and that's what I ended up majoring in. But it really struck me that is not the way. I think that the teacher was trying to get rid of students. I mean, that was pretty much what was happening there. Okay, and I just thought that that's not what we want for our students. That's 3,000 dots. That's the number of students who will be coming to us next week as first-time in college students, roughly. It's an estimate based on prior years, okay? Went too far. If you take 900 out of them, that's the number that will remain in spring. Every year, we lose approximately 30% of our first-time in college students from fall to spring. Okay? I hope that number sounds impressive to you. Why do we do it? Why do we lose 30% of our students every year from fall to spring? I've been here a long time. I've been here since 1991. I've heard all kinds of reasons, okay? Here are some of them. This is what we've said over the years. The students aren't prepared. They have too many outside issues, work and family life. The high schools didn't do their jobs. It's not our job to bring them up to speed. Have you heard that? Some students just don't have what it takes. My job isn't to motivate, it's to teach. Interesting that there's a distinction there, don't you think? The students don't even know why they're in my class. Or, perhaps the worst, the students just don't care. Is there any truth to these? Well, I actually think there might be some truth to them. But that's not the point, okay? I think we do get students who aren't prepared as well as we would like them to be in our classes, okay? The point about this is that these are outward-facing statements. These are statements of blame. These are statements that point to the students and put it on them as opposed to looking inward and putting it on us, okay? These are statements, honestly, I think many of us have probably made over the years. Many very fine instructors have probably made over the years, okay? But I think what we need to do is to start looking at how we can work with these students rather than putting the blame on them and using that as an excuse for them going away. So, that was what we've been saying, okay? This is what we're saying now. That it's more important to make students feel connected to the college. You heard this theme through in several people's talks this morning. Make our students feel connected to the college by building relationships. That can happen both in the classroom and at the various work sites that we have. That can happen in our counseling center, in admissions and records, in our labs, certainly in the classrooms. This is what it does not mean. It does not mean that faculty need to be adding to their curriculum. This isn't an extra thing to teach, okay? And it does not mean that faculty should be lowering their standards or decreasing rigor. This is a counter-argument that I hear sometimes, okay? What it does mean is that all of us, faculty, classified professionals, managers, need to take responsibility for our students' experience, okay? Rather than figuring it's somebody else's job, we need to take the responsibility and assume that it's our job to help our students every time. So how do we do that? We've got a lot of good work going as a college, okay, in terms of kind of reimagining what we do. You've heard about guided pathways and reworking our onboarding experience, creating meta majors and program maps for our students so that they see a clearer path to their goals. We are working on a first-year experience program, including a course, but much more than a course. And we're also working on contextualizing learning of essential skills so that the learning happens and it becomes much more relevant for our students. These are all things that are happening college-wide. I would urge you to get involved in these activities. You'll hear more and more about them as the year goes along. But there's some keys that go beyond that, whether or not you're involved in those larger programs. One of the keys, as we've heard from several people this morning, is connecting students to the right resources, okay? How do you do that, right? If you're an instructor in your class, do you send your student to counseling or to admissions and records? How does that happen? How do you know they get there, okay? So these are questions that perhaps need addressing. And then you need to connect students to the right people. We were discussing this at a Guided Pathways design team meeting the other day, and Angie Lambert, who appropriately was lauded in our excellence program earlier this morning, said each of us needs to be the right person. And I thought, absolutely. That's absolutely it. We need to think of ourselves as being that right person, not sending the student off to somebody else necessarily, or if we're doing that, doing it in a way where we know the connection has been made for the student. Okay, we might not have all the answers for them, and that's perfectly fine, but helping the students so that we know they've gotten help and not just away from us momentarily. But I think overall, what we really need to be doing is connecting with students and seizing opportunities to do that, okay? Looking for opportunities when it's needed. And another way of kind of thinking about this is looking and being aware of potential exit points for our students. They're there all the time. When you pass back an exam in your class, the way you pass back that exam may cause a student to leave. And it's all too easy. When the student, all it takes is you pass it back in a particular manner, the student goes to his car, and he's gone. Okay? It's much easier to leave this institution than it is to come into it, right? And then we won't know what it was. So every interaction you have with the student is an opportunity to keep the student here. And the difficult part is, it's not always easy to ascertain that it's a critical moment. So, to the extent possible, it's important to see all our interactions with students as critical moments. You don't know when what you think is just an offhand remark might have a very positive impact on a student or a very negative impact on a student. But we do know that 30% of our students leave us between fall and spring. So that's the thrust of this conversation. That's what I want us to be working on. That's what President Gutierrez wants us to be working on too, okay, because I've had this discussion with him. And I think it's critical. I mean, this could be a conversation really about productivity. This could be a conversation about the funding formula, okay? And it is, kind of. The more students we keep from fall to spring will help our productivity in our classes. It will help us in the bottom line in terms of the amount of apportionment we get from the state, okay? Those things are important, but believe me, I pay attention pretty carefully to those things. But I don't want this conversation to be particularly about those things. I want it to be about keeping our students from fall to spring. That's what I would like it to be about. I would like it to be about specific students that you have in your classes, that you encounter in your jobs in intermissions and records and financial aid and in the tutoring center in the library. It needs to be about all those particular people. And if we're thinking about them not as dots on a chart, but as particular people, I think we'll make some ground up here. And I think it would be wonderful if instead of losing 900 students by spring, we lose, if it were 450 instead. Can you imagine? That's a huge change. Obviously, we want more, right? But 30%, which is 900 students, just seems out of line to me. So that experience I had back at Chico State, the instructor probably didn't think it was that big a deal, probably felt that he was upholding rigor in the class and sort of warning the students that, you know, 2/3 of the students in the class would be leaving. I was fortunate. I had resources around me. I stayed. A lot of the students didn't. So that's something for us to be working on. All the new faculty spread across the stage and seeing them throughout this week, and the new classified professionals and the great student speakers that we've had here, the new managers. It's very encouraging to see everybody here, and I wish all of you a great semester. Dr. Deborah Crumpton.
I never get tired of hearing that. I worked hard for it. Listen, I know you all have 15 minutes before lunch, but I want to bring you back to what you heard. Right? I want to bring you back to the students' voices, because it's not a secret, nor is it a mystery. We need to increase retention, and more importantly, we need to increase student success, especially for Black and brown students and students who have felt disproportionately impacted, too many of whom, until now, we've let slip away. This is not in these prepared remarks, and I don't want to take credit for these are some incredible words I'm reading. I didn't write them. My sister, Donna DiMartini, wrote these incredible words that I'm privileged to read. I love you, Donna. But I got to go off script for a minute. Courtney says, I'm Black, and I say that to my students, and my students giggle like you giggle. But it's important. And a couple of weeks ago, we lost an incredible figure in this country. I'm talking about Toni Morrison. And as I read about Toni Morrison's life, she was unabashedly who she was, and she was unabashedly Black. And there's a lot in that. And this summer I went to Ghana, and I have come back unabashedly Black. And it is not to denigrate anybody else, but just simply to be who I am. I had a faculty member write me the other day and say, because I've sent out several requests for class observations, and it asks new faculty, when they go in the classroom, to observe who's there. And I had a faculty member write back to me and says, Deborah, do you know that this is in your observation? Well, yes. If you can't see me, you cannot have a relationship with me. You must see me. What you see is not all of me, but it is part of me, right? Like when I see you. So I just want everybody to, just be easy around this thing. Easy meaning I see it, right? It's not the defining thing, I see it. I don't shame anybody about it, right? I don't criminalize anyone about it. I just simply see it. So we don't just need to increase this retention of students, all students. We want to increase retention of students. We want to increase retention and student success because we believe in education and we believe in justice. There is no secret. There is no magical best practice. There is no state-mandated intervention that can or will do this for us better than what our students have told us today. This is how we increase retention. We create, alongside our students, the academic world that is theirs to live in and to learn in, a world that we all live in, that we all learn in, and that we all grow in. This is how we get students on a path and keep them on it, by creating the paths with them, by knowing who they are and what moves them, what drives them, what they long for, and what they dream of. This is how we increase student success and course success, by using our professional expertise and our humanity to create the context for our students to make connections between our content and what matters to them, to their families, to their communities, and to their world. By seeing, really seeing, the student in front of us, in the counseling office, across the counter in financial aid, behind us in line at City Cafe, waiting for us next to the elevator. I think about my journey. This is not on the script. And every time someone has pulled me, I remember the first time someone pulled me up. It was my Jewish female teacher in the 8th grade, Mrs. Somers. Mrs. Somers says, yeah, you can, Deborah, you can. I remember the next time I had my most significant pull. I was a sergeant in the United States Army. And this big guy named Ansel Hicks from Arkansas, who we all thought was a redneck, pulled me into his office and said, you know what, Sergeant? This guy was a West Pointer, fast tracker, all of that. He said, you can do exactly what I can do. So this is not about color. It's not about that. It's about seeing in people who they really are, Ansel Hicks. I think about all the people who have pulled me. Hearing our students describe the ideal Sacramento City College will hopefully inspire you and me and motivate us. But we can't stay in the dream state. Each of us in this room is responsible for making and implementing, usually both, the very policies that become barriers for our students to achieve what they are here to achieve. Feel-good language about dreams and imagination won't transform our college. We must root out the very policies and procedures that are inflicting disproportionate harm on our students, and we must change them, no matter who made the policy. Sometimes these policies seem neutral and fair on the surface, but because we don't know what we don't know, or because we don't want to see, they have a direct line to the inequitable outcomes we are committed to change. What are those policies and procedures in your department, at your workstation, and in your classroom? What are they? You need to figure them out between now and Sunday. Yeah. How will you discover what they are so you can change them? And if you don't figure them out between now and Sunday, when your students tell them that they're a barrier, you need to remove them right in that moment. So in the beautifully illustrated children's book, What If?, there's an epigraph by the novelist Wendell Berry, and it says, "For humans to have a responsible relationship to the world, we must imagine our places in it. To have a place, to live and belong in a place. To live from a place without destroying it, we must imagine it. By imagination, we see it illuminated by its own unique character and by our love for it. So, my friends, my colleagues, as we embark on this new academic year, let us realize the imaginations of our students that we've learned from. Let us be in responsible relationship with our students and with each other and with this place we love. I wish each one of you a tremendous academic semester. I want you to go out there and change some lives. Stop sitting on neutral. Bless you all. I'm followed by Dr. Norman Lorenz.
We are at our final two elements before you leave. You don't want to miss these last two. First of all, on behalf of all of us being here today, thank you so much for investing in professional development as a part of serving our students. As you will see in the program, this afternoon you have department and division meetings. Please see your division offices for times and locations. And final thoughts, number two, most important, Dr. Albert Garcia to close us today.
This isn't so much a closing, but an introduction of a little video. I know this has been long, but you want to see this.
Hello, Sac City College. I feel very blessed to be with you today. I've received all your well wishes, your thoughts, and your prayers, and my family and I are so very, very grateful. It's been quite overwhelming, actually. I've been thinking about all of you a tremendous amount, and I've been thinking about how you've committed your life and your career to our students and to our community, to help our students learn and to help them fulfill their goals. And that inspires me to get myself out of bed, to know that what I do in my career and my life has meaning. I can't wait to see all of you, and I very much look forward to seeing you very soon. Have a great start to the semester.
As you can tell, we have a permanent president at the college who cares very deeply about the college and the people here. So that, to me, speaks volumes about this place, about all of you, and about him. Have a good semester.